The alarm rang across the bridge of the Kalari command ship. Ambassador Zethka watched the main screen with growing fear. Red dots filled the display like drops of blood spreading through water. Each dot was a Vex ship. Each ship carried death. How many worlds have they taken now? Zethka asked. His voice was quiet, but everyone on the bridge could hear the pain in it. 12 star systems are gone, replied Captain Voxley. The Vex consumed everything, every planet, every moon, every living thing. She paused and looked at the data again. They are moving toward our space. We have maybe 6 months before they reach our outer colonies. Zethka closed his 4 eyes. The Kalari were a peaceful people. They had never fought a real war. Their ships were built for trade and exploration, not battle. Their weapons were designed to stun, not kill. They had always believed that problems could be solved with words and wisdom. The Vex proved them wrong. What about the other species? Zethka asked. Have any of them agreed to help us? Captain Voxley checked her reports. The Zentari offered 50 ships, but they want half of our mining rights. The Gorlak said they would consider sending aid if we give them 3 star systems. The Epsilon Coalition refuses to get involved at all. Zethka felt his heart sink. 50 ships would not stop the Vex. The swarm had thousands of vessels. They bred faster than anyone could count. They ate everything in their path and used it to make more ships, more soldiers, more death. Sir, called Communications Officer Nexdo from across the bridge. I have been scanning for other species that might help us. I found something interesting. What is it? Zethka asked. There is a species called humans. They come from a system called Sol. It is far from here, in what most consider backwater space. Captain Voxley made a sound that might have been laughter if it was not so sad. Humans? I have heard of them. They are young, primitive. They only learned to travel between stars a few hundred years ago. What could they possibly do against the Vex? Nexdu looked at his screen again. The reports about them are strange, sir. Some traders say they are dangerous. Others say they are friendly. But all the reports agree on one thing. They are very hard to kill. Hard to kill means nothing. Against the Vex, Captain Voxley said. The Vex do not just kill, they consume. They turn everything into part of their swarm. Zethka thought about this. The Kalari had tried everything else. The great powers of the galaxy wanted too much in return for their help. The smaller species could not provide enough aid to matter. Maybe it was time to try something different. Send a message to these humans, he said. Sir? Captain Voxley looked surprised. What could they possibly offer us? I do not know, Zethka admitted. But we are running out of options. If they refuse, we have lost nothing. If they agree, maybe we gain something. Nexdo nodded and began working on his equipment. What should the message say, sir? Zethka thought for a moment. How did you ask strangers to help save your entire species? How did you put the fear and pain of watching worlds burn into words? Tell them our situation, he said finally. Tell them the Vex are coming and we cannot stop them alone. Tell them we offer trade agreements, mining rights, technology sharing, and territorial access. Ask them if they can spare any military force to help us. How much military force should we request? Nexdo asked. Ask for whatever they can spare, Zethka said. Even a few hundred soldiers would show good faith. The message was sent across the vast distance between stars. It traveled through space at the speed of light, carrying the desperate hope of an entire federation. 3 weeks later, a reply came back. Sir, Nexdo called out, excitement in his voice. The humans have responded. What did they say? Zethka asked. The message is short, sir. It says, we have received your request for military aid. We are sending a fleet to assist you. Admiral Jake Morrison, United Colonial Defense Force. Captain Voxley frowned. That is all? No demands? No conditions? There is more, sir, Nexdo said. They are asking for detailed information about the Vex, ship types, weapons, tactics, biology. They want to know everything we have learned about the enemy. Zethka felt a small spark of hope. At least someone was taking them seriously. Send them everything. Every report, every scan, every piece of data we have about the Vex. Over the following days, more messages came from the humans. They asked detailed questions about Vex behavior. They wanted to know about previous battles. They requested information about Kalari defensive capabilities and the layout of their star systems. They are very thorough, Captain Voxley admitted. More thorough than the other species we contacted. I am starting to think we made the right choice, Zethka said. A month after the first reply, another message arrived. This one was different. It came with a data packet that made Nextu's equipment work harder than usual. Sir, Nextu said, his voice uncertain. The humans are sending a fleet manifest. They are listing the ships and personnel they are sending to help us. How many ships? Zethka asked. Nextu was quiet for a long moment, checking and rechecking his readings. Sir, this cannot be right. According to this manifest, they are sending over 200 ships. Captain Voxley stood up quickly. 200? For a species we have never heard of, that seems like their entire military force. There is more, sir. Nextu continued. They are sending 50,000 ground troops, and something called the Reaper Division. Zethka felt confused. Why would a young primitive species send so much aid to strangers? Most civilized species would send a token force and demand payment up front. When will they arrive? He asked. According to their message, the advanced ships will reach our space in 5 months. The main fleet will arrive 1 month after that. Just in time, Zethka thought. The Vex would reach Kalari space around the same time. Whatever these humans could do, they would need to do it quickly. Sir, Captain Voxley said quietly. What if we have made a mistake? What if these humans are not what they seem? Zethka looked at the display showing Vex movements. The red dots were getting closer every day. Soon they would reach the outer colonies. After that, the core worlds. After that, extinction. If we have made a mistake, he said, at least we will not die wondering what might have been. None of them knew that their message had reached a species that had spent its entire history learning how to fight. None of them knew that humans had evolved from creatures that hunted other creatures across vast distances until their prey simply could not run anymore. None of them knew that they had just asked the galaxy's apex predators for help, and the predators had said yes. 6 months had passed since the first message to Earth. Ambassador Zethka stood on the observation deck of Kalari Prime Station, watching space for any sign of the promised human fleet. The Vex had already attacked 2 outer colonies. Both worlds were now silent, consumed by the swarm. Sir, Captain Voxley called from behind him. We are detecting hyperspace signatures. Multiple contacts approaching the system. Zethka turned quickly. Is it the Vex? No, sir. The signatures match human. Technology from the data they sent us. She paused, looking at her scanner with confusion. Sir, there are a lot more ships than we expected. They hurried to the command center. The main display showed dozens of contact markers appearing at the edge of the system. Then dozens more. Then even more. How many ships are there? Zethka asked. I count over 300 vessels, sir, reported Sensor Officer Kelna. And they are big. Much bigger than our ships. The first human ships came into visual range an hour later. Zethka stared at the screen in shock. These were not the sleek curved ships that most civilized species built. These vessels looked like weapons themselves. They were covered in sharp angles and what could only be gun turrets. They looked like they were built for war, Captain Voxley whispered. The largest ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of any Kalari vessel. Its hull was dark gray and covered in weapon systems. As they watched, smaller ships moved around it like predators protecting their pack leader. Incoming transmission, announced Communications Officer Nextu. Put it on screen, Zethka ordered. The face that appeared on the display made several Kalari officers step back in surprise. The human was tall and broad, with short gray hair and scars on his weathered face. But it was his eyes that disturbed them most. They were the eyes of a hunter. This is Captain Alex Stone of the UCS Retribution, the human said. His voice was deep and carried an edge that suggested violence was always an option. "We are here in response to your request for military assistance." Zethka tried to compose himself. "Captain Stone, I am Ambassador Zethka of the Kalari Federation. We are grateful for your response to our plea for help." Captain Stone nodded curtly. "We brought everything you asked for and more. General Marcus Kane will be leading ground operations. He will want to meet with your military commanders as soon as possible." "Of course," Zethka replied. "How many troops have you brought?" 50,000 Marines in the first wave, another 100,000 are en route with the support fleet. Stone's expression did not change as he delivered this information, as if sending 150,000 soldiers across the galaxy was perfectly normal. Captain Voxley made a choking sound. The entire Kalari Federation military had fewer than 20,000 personnel, and most of those were engineers and technicians. "Captain Stone," Zethka said carefully, "we appreciate your generous response, but we may not be able to provide payment for such a large force." For the first time, Captain Stone's expression changed. He smiled, showing white teeth that looked uncomfortably sharp. "Ambassador, we are not here for payment. We are here because someone needs to stop the Vex. Consider it a favor between neighbors." The transmission ended, leaving the Kalari command staff in stunned silence. 2 hours later, General Marcus Kane arrived on Kalari Prime Station. Zethka met him at the docking bay with a full honor guard. The human who stepped off the transport ship was even more intimidating than Captain Stone had been on screen. Kane was tall and muscular, with dark skin marked by old battle scars. He moved with the fluid grace of a predator, and his eyes constantly scanned the area as if looking for threats or weaknesses. The soldiers who followed him off the ship wore armor that looked like it could stop heavy weapons fire. "General Kane," Zethka said, offering the traditional Kalari greeting of open palms. "Welcome to our station." Kane looked at the offered gesture for a moment, then clasped Zethka's hands in his own. The human's grip was firm and his hands were rough with calluses. "Ambassador, thank you for the welcome. We need to talk about the tactical situation immediately." They moved to the main briefing room, where Zethka had assembled his senior staff. General Kane studied each Kalari officer with those unsettling predator eyes before taking his seat. "Before we begin," Kane said, "I need to understand something. Your species has never fought a real war, correct?" Captain Voxley nodded hesitantly. "The Kalari have always resolved conflicts through negotiation and compromise." "What about your weapons?" Kane asked. "What do you use for ship-to-ship combat?" "Ion cannons designed to disable enemy systems," Voxley replied. "And plasma nets, to capture rather than destroy." Kane was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his equipment bag and pulled out a device that looked like a metal tube. "This is a standard Marine combat rifle. It fires projectiles at 3,000 meters per second. Each projectile is designed to penetrate armor and cause maximum tissue damage to the target." The Kalari officers stared at the weapon in horror. "General," Zethka said slowly, "do all human weapons work this way?" "The small ones do," Kane replied matter-of-factly. "Our ship weapons are much more destructive." Dr. Emma Wells, who had remained quiet until now, leaned forward. She was smaller than the other humans, but her eyes held the same unsettling intensity. "Ambassador, I need to explain something about human evolution. It might help you understand why we fight the way we do." "Please," Zethka said. "Humans evolved from persistence hunters," Dr. Wells began. "We are descended from creatures that would chase their prey across vast distances for hours, or even days, until the prey simply collapsed from exhaustion. We learned to work in coordinated groups, to use tools as weapons, and to never give up once we started hunting something." Captain Voxley made a sound of distress. "You mean humans are natural predators?" "More than that," Dr. Wells said. "We are apex predators. On our world, we hunted creatures much larger and stronger than ourselves. We learned to use our intelligence to overcome physical disadvantages." General Kane picked up his rifle again. "The Vex think they are the ultimate predators because they consume everything in their path. But they have never met anything like humans. They hunt like a swarm. We hunt like a pack." What is the difference? Zethka asked. Kane smiled, and again those sharp teeth were visible. A swarm follows instinct. A pack uses strategy. Over the next few hours, General Kane outlined the human battle plan. The Kalari officers grew increasingly disturbed as they realized what they had brought into their space. The humans planned to use tactics that no civilized species would consider. They talked about acceptable losses and collateral damage, as if the death of their own soldiers was just part of the plan. General, Zethka said finally, are you certain these methods are necessary? Kane looked at him with those predator eyes. Ambassador, you asked us to stop the Vex. The Vex do not negotiate, they do not compromise, they consume everything in their path until someone stops them with superior force. But surely there must be a more civilized approach. The Vex consumed 12 star systems, Kane replied. How many more civilized species tried to negotiate with them? How many tried to find a peaceful solution? He leaned forward. You called us because every civilized approach failed. Now you have us. We are not civilized when we fight. That is why we win. As the meeting ended, Zethka walked to the observation deck and looked out at the human fleet. The ships hung in space like dark metal predators bristling with weapons. He had asked for help and help had come. But looking at those ships, at those humans with their predator eyes and casual talk of violence, Zethka wondered if the cure might be worse than the disease. In 3 days, the Vex would arrive at the outer system. Then they would learn what happened when the galaxy's apex predators decided to go hunting. The Vex arrived 3 days later, just as predicted. Their ships poured out of hyperspace like a dark flood, filling the outer system with thousands of biomechanical vessels. Each ship looked like it had been grown rather than built, with organic curves and pulsing surfaces that seemed alive. Ambassador Zethka watched from the command center as the enemy fleet spread out. How many ships do they have? He asked. Over 8,000 vessels detected so far, reported Sensor Officer Kelna. More are still arriving. Captain Vox Lee looked at the tactical display with despair. Even with the human fleet, we are outnumbered 20 to 1. Contact General Kane, Zethka ordered. Tell him the Vex have arrived. The reply came back immediately. General Kane says to watch and learn. Before anyone could ask what that meant, the human fleet began to move. The ships did not form the neat battle lines that most civilized species used. Instead, they spread out in small groups, moving with a coordination that seemed almost instinctive. What are they doing? Captain Voxley asked. Her question was answered when the first human ships reached weapons range. The UCS Retribution, Captain, Stone's massive dreadnought, opened fire with weapons the Kalari had never seen before. Streams of superheated metal tore through Vex ships like they were made of paper. Where Kalari ion cannons would have disabled enemy vessels, human weapons simply destroyed them. But it was not just the power of the weapons that shocked the Kalari observers. It was how the humans used them. They did not fire warning shots or try to disable enemy ships. They aimed for maximum destruction, turning Vex vessels into expanding clouds of debris. They are not trying to capture any ships, Captain Voxley whispered. They are just killing everything. The Vex responded as they always did, with overwhelming numbers. Hundreds of their ships swarmed toward each human vessel. The Kalari expected to see the human ships retreat or call for help. Instead, the humans did something unexpected. They split up, small groups of human ships scattered in different directions, each group trailing dozens of pursuing Vex vessels. It looked like the humans were running away, but something about their movement seemed wrong. Sir, called Tactical Officer Zenko, the human ships are not retreating randomly, they are following specific flight paths. What kind of paths? Zethka asked. Before Zenko could answer, the first group of human ships suddenly turned and opened fire on their pursuers. But they were not alone. Another group of human ships had moved into position behind the Vex formation. The enemy found themselves caught between two forces taking fire from both sides. It is a trap, Captain Voxley said with amazement. They made the Vex think they were retreating, then surrounded them. The pattern repeated across the battlefield. Human ships would appear to flee, drawing Vex forces into carefully planned ambushes. Each time, the Vex lost dozens of ships while the humans lost very few. How do they coordinate so perfectly? Zethka wondered. Their ships are spread across the entire system. Pack hunting, said a voice behind them. They turned to see Dr. Emma Wells had arrived on the command deck. Humans evolved to hunt in coordinated groups. We do it instinctively. But surely the Vex will learn to avoid the traps, Captain Voxley said. Dr. Wells smiled, and like all human smiles, it showed too many teeth. The Vex have a hive mind. They think as one organism. That makes them predictable to species like us who think as individuals working together. As if to prove her point, the humans suddenly changed tactics. Instead of small group ambushes, they began using something called wolf pack attacks. 3 or 4 human ships would target a single large Vex vessel, hitting it from different angles until it was destroyed, then immediately moving to the next target. The Vex tried to adapt, but every time they changed their approach, the humans changed theirs faster. It was like watching a chess match where one player could see 10 moves ahead. Incoming transmission from the surface, announced Communications Officer Nexdo. It is from Colony 7. Put it through, Zethka ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was panicked. Command, this is Colony 7. Vex ground forces have landed. We need immediate assistance. How many ships got through? Captain Voxley asked. Approximately 50 transport vessels made it past the fleet battle, Zenko reported. Dr. Wells was already talking into her communicator. Kane, you have Vex ground forces on Colony 7. 50 transports worth. General Kane's voice came back. Immediately. Already on it. Rodriguez is leading the first response team down now. 20 minutes later, they received another transmission from Colony 7. This time, the voice was different, calmer. Command, this is Sergeant Danny Rodriguez, Earth Marines. We have engaged Vex ground forces. What is your situation, Sergeant? Zethka asked. Sir, the Vex landed about 3,000 troops. They are using standard swarm tactics, trying to overwhelm our positions with numbers. Do you need reinforcements? There was a pause. Then Rodriguez's voice came back with what sounded like amusement. No, sir. We are handling the situation. Sergeant, you have only 200 Marines against 3,000 Vex warriors. Yes, sir. The Vex seem to think that gives them an advantage. Over the next hour, reports came in from Colony 7 that confused the Kalari command staff. The Marines were not just holding their positions, they were advancing. Somehow 200 humans were pushing back 3,000 Vex ground troops. How is this possible? Captain Voxley asked Dr. Wells. The Vex are used to fighting herbivorous species, Dr. Wells explained. Species that run when attacked. Humans do not run. We attack back. But the numbers mean nothing if you use them wrong. The Vex bunch up in large groups because it works against most species. Against humans, it just gives us bigger targets. Lieutenant Amy Foster's voice came over the communications system. Command, this is Orbital Fire Control. We have Marines on the ground requesting precision bombardment on Vex positions. Approved, came General Kane's immediate response. Light them up. What followed was a demonstration of human warfare that left the Kalari observers speechless. The orbital bombardment was not the random destruction most species used. Instead, it was surgical. Explosive charges landed exactly where the Marines wanted them, destroying Vex formations while leaving human forces untouched. The coordination between ground and space forces is perfect, Zenko observed. How do they do it? Practice, Dr. Wells said simply. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We have learned to be very good at it. The battle in space was also turning in humanity's favor. The Vex fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming an hour ago, was being systematically destroyed. Human ships moved through the enemy formation like sharks through a school of fish, striking fast and moving on before the Vex could respond effectively. Sir, Sensor Officer Kelna called out. I am detecting massive energy signatures from the Vex command ship. They appear to be preparing some kind of weapon. What kind of weapon? Zethka asked. Unknown, but the energy readings are off the scale. Dr. Wells was already on her communicator. Stone, the Vex command ship is charging something big. Captain. Stone's voice came back cold and professional. Confirmed. We see it too. All ships prepare for Reaper Protocol. What is Reaper Protocol? Captain Voxley asked. Dr. Wells looked at her with those predator eyes. Something we hoped we would not need to use. Across the human fleet, ships began to change. Panels opened on their hulls, revealing weapons that had been hidden. The ships themselves seemed to grow larger as additional armor plating extended from their cores. The Reaper Division ships are not just warships, Dr. Wells explained. They are specifically designed to fight enemies like the Vex, enemies that cannot be reasoned with. The Vex command ship fired its weapon. A beam of energy that could have destroyed a moon lanced across space toward the UCS Retribution. The beam hit the human dreadnought dead center. The ship did not even slow down. Impossible, Captain Voxley whispered. Nothing could survive that. The Retribution has armor designed to absorb energy weapons, Dr. Wells said. The more power you put into it, the stronger it gets. Captain Stone's voice came over the communication system, directed at the Vex fleet. You had your chance. Now it is our turn. The human ships opened fire with their hidden weapons. These were not the conventional guns they had been using before. These weapons tore holes in space itself, creating miniature black holes that consumed everything they touched. Vex ships simply vanished, pulled into the artificial singularities before they could even scream. Within 10 minutes, the entire Vex fleet was gone. 8,000 ships reduced to nothing. The silence that followed was deafening. Command, came Sergeant Rodriguez's voice from the surface. Ground operations complete. All Vex forces eliminated. Ambassador Zethka stared at the empty space where the Vex fleet had been. In less than 2 hours, the humans had destroyed a force that had consumed 12 star systems. Dr. Wells, he said quietly, what have we brought into our galaxy? She looked at him with those unsettling predator eyes. The answer to your problem, Ambassador. The Vex will not trouble you again. But as Zethka looked out at the human fleet, still bristling with weapons that could destroy reality itself, he wondered if they had simply traded one monster for another. 3 weeks after the battle, Ambassador Zethka received a message that made his blood run cold. The Galactic Council wanted to meet with him immediately. They had questions about the humans. The council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species. Zethka had never seen so many different aliens in one place, all looking at him with expressions ranging from fear to anger to curiosity. Chancellor Morseth of the Zentari Empire spoke first. Ambassador Zethka, we need to discuss what happened in your system. The energy signatures we detected were unlike anything in known space. The humans helped us defeat the Vex, Zethka replied carefully. Is that not what matters? What matters, said Counselor Vexra of the Epsilon Coalition, is that this species you brought into our galaxy possesses weapons that can destroy reality itself. Do you understand what that means? Before Zethka could answer, the chamber doors opened. Admiral Jake Morrison walked in, followed by General Marcus Kane and Dr. Emma Wells. The human admiral was older than the others, with gray hair and calm eyes that seemed to see everything. The chamber fell silent. Most of the council members had never seen a human in person before. Morrison walked to the center of the room with the confident stride of someone who knew exactly how dangerous he was. Council members, Morrison said, his voice carrying easily through the large chamber. I am Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Colonial Defense Force. I understand you have concerns about our presence in this galaxy. Chancellor Morseth leaned forward in his seat. Admiral, your species used weapons that our scientists say should not exist. Weapons that can create black holes at will. The power required for such weapons should be impossible for any species to generate. Morrison nodded calmly. The weapons exist. We built them. We used them to save the Kalari Federation from extinction. That is not the point, snapped Counselor Dexco of the Hegemony. The point is that you possess technology that makes every other species in this galaxy defenseless against you. Are you planning to attack us? Morrison asked. The question was asked casually, but something in his tone made several Council EU members shift uncomfortably in their seats. Of course not, Chancellor Morseth said quickly. We are a peaceful alliance. We resolve conflicts through discussion and compromise. Morrison smiled, and like all human smiles, it showed teeth. Good. Because we did not come here to conquer anyone. We came here to stop the Vex. But now the Vex are gone, said Counselor Vex Ra. What do you plan to do now? That depends, Morrison replied. Are there other species like the Vex in this galaxy? Other threats that consume entire civilizations? The council members looked at each other. Finally, Chancellor Morseth spoke. There are always threats, Admiral. Pirates, rogue states, extremist groups, but nothing like the Vex. Then we will deal with those threats as they arise, Morrison said simply. You cannot simply appoint yourselves as the galaxy's police force, Counselor Dexco protested. Morrison's expression did not change. We are not appointing ourselves as anything. We are simply doing what needs to be done. General Kane stepped forward. Council members, let me explain something about humans. We do not start fights, but we finish them. The Vex were a threat to all life in this galaxy. We eliminated that threat by destroying entire fleets in minutes, Chancellor Morseth said, by using weapons that violate the laws of physics as we understand them. Dr. Wells spoke for the first time. The laws of physics are the same everywhere, Chancellor. We simply understand them better than you do. That is exactly what concerns us, Counselor Vex Ra said. Your technology is so far beyond ours that we might as well be primitives comparing ourselves to gods. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, May I ask you all a question? Of course, Chancellor Morseth replied. How many species in this galaxy have extinct civilizations that the Vex consumed? The council members looked uncomfortable. 12 star systems, Chancellor Morseth admitted. And how many of those civilizations asked for help before they died? All of them, Counselor Dexco said quietly. And how many of your species sent significant aid? The chamber was silent. Morrison nodded. That is what I thought. You all knew the Vex were consuming entire civilizations, and you did nothing because it was not your problem, until it became the Kalari's problem, and they asked us for help. We offered assistance, Chancellor Morseth protested. The Zentari offered 50 ships. 50 ships against 8,000, General Kane said. That was not assistance. That was an insult. So what do you want from us? Counselor Vex Ra asked. Nothing, Morrison replied. We want nothing from any of you. We will continue to exist in this galaxy, and we will respond to threats as we see fit. You can either work with us or stay out of our way. And if we choose to oppose you? Counselor Dexco asked. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Admiral Morrison looked at the counselor with those calm, predator eyes. I would strongly advise against that course of action. Are you threatening us? Chancellor Morseth demanded. No, Morrison said simply. I am giving you advice. We did not come here to fight other civilized species, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. Dr. Wells added, You have seen what we can do to a species that exists only to consume and destroy. Do you really want to find out what we can do to species that choose to be our enemies? The council session continued for several more hours, but the outcome was already clear. The humans were staying, and there was nothing the Galactic Council could do about it. Later, Ambassador Zethka met privately with Admiral Morrison. Admiral, I must ask you something. Are my people safe? Are any of our species safe with humans in the galaxy? Morrison looked out the viewport at the stars. Ambassador, humans have a saying. We are only as good as our word, and only as dangerous as we need to be. Your people asked for help, and we gave it. That makes you our allies. And what about the other species? The ones who are afraid of you? Fear can be useful, Morrison said. It keeps people from making stupid decisions, but we do not want to rule over anyone. We just want to make sure that nothing like the Vex ever threatens innocent people again. What if something worse than the Vex appears? Morrison smiled that predator smile. Then we will deal with it. That is what we do. 6 months later, reports began filtering through. The galaxy. Pirate fleets that had terrorized trade routes for decades were disappearing. Rogue states that had refused to follow galactic law were suddenly becoming very cooperative. Extremist groups that had threatened civilian populations were going quiet. Nobody saw human ships in these areas. Nobody detected human weapons signatures. But everyone understood the message. The galaxy had new apex predators, and they had decided that innocent people deserved protection. At the Galactic Council's next meeting, Chancellor Morseth made an announcement. The Council has voted to establish formal diplomatic relations with the human species. We recognize their right to exist in this galaxy and their sovereign authority over their territory. What he did not say, but everyone understood, was that the Council had no choice. The humans had proven they could destroy any threat to innocent life. They had also proven they could destroy anyone who tried to stop them. Ambassador Zethka watched the proceedings from the observer's gallery. The Kalari had asked for help, and help had come. They had wanted someone to save them from monsters. They had gotten something better. They had gotten monsters who protected the innocent from other monsters. The galaxy was no longer the same. There were new rules now, enforced by beings who had evolved to be the ultimate predators. Species that had spent centuries oppressing others suddenly found themselves looking over their shoulders, wondering if the humans were watching. And in the deep spaces between stars, human ships patrolled silently, making sure that nothing like the Vex would ever threaten innocent life again. The Kalari had asked for aid, but Earth had sent its monsters, and those monsters had decided that the galaxy needed protection from things far worse than themselves. It was a new age, and humanity had claimed its place at the top of the food chain.